Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Supplemental Sense. Today I want to help expose the antidepressant agenda. Many people may consider this controversial or conspiracy theory hunting. I can confidently assure you that I don't care. I'm not trying to tell you what to think, just take it in and make your own conclusions. This very agenda we are seeing today was played out in George Orwell's 1984. If you've read it, you know what I'm talking about. There's also a movie that was made in 2002 called Equilibrium, starring Christian Bale, that depicts the same situation. I'm pretty sure that was based on 1984. It's about a society controlled by an anti-emotion drug. The people are required by law to take a drug called Prozium. Yes, you heard that right. Prozium, Prozac, same difference. To keep the population at an emotional equilibrium. The law is sold to the public as a way to prevent war. You know, the argument that war is the product of emotions. If everyone takes this drug, then we'll have eternal peace. Obviously, the dictator's real reason is for absolute control and to enslave everyone. The movie is fantastic, one of my all-time favorites. Not surprisingly, the movie got intentionally buried. So it's not a crazy thought to consider antidepressants as a tool for enslavement and control. In fact, if you dig deep enough, you almost certainly cannot deny it. All psychoactive drugs, including antidepressants, are known to blunt our emotional responses to some extent. So obviously we aren't to the point of required administration to everyone, but we are moving towards that every day. The market for antidepressant drugs is now $12 billion. Almost 25 million adults in the US have been taking antidepressants for at least 2 years. Since 2010, that's a 60% increase in use. And it seems that once you start them, you can't get off of them. 1 in 6 Americans currently take some kind of psychiatric drug. There's no sign of a decline coming anytime soon or even for a plateau. We are on the dangerous path to a future where these drugs become as common as owning a cell phone. So why is it getting so out of control? When you walk into a doctor's office these days, you're more likely to be prescribed an antidepressant medication than any other drug. Drug companies claim that more than 80% of depressed people can be successfully treated with antidepressants. They know that people suffering from mental disorders, and especially their families, prefer a diagnosis of physical disease because it does not convey the stigma and blame commonly associated with psychological problems. A physical disease may suggest a more optimistic prognosis, and the mental patients are often more open to drug treatment when they are told they have a physical disease. This swell of prescribing habits is driven by the chemical imbalance theory, which antidepressants aim to correct. But the science just isn't there. The two neurotransmitters believed to be involved in depression are serotonin and norepinephrine. These days, serotonin is widely promoted as a way to achieve just about every personality trait that is desirable, including self-confidence, creativity, emotional resilience, success, achievement, sociability, and high energy. I mean, that kind of sounds like we've just discovered the cheat code to life. So they take a complex and heterogeneous condition like depression and boil it down to a simple imbalance of 2 to 3 neurotransmitters out of the 100 plus that have been identified, which of course can be corrected by long-term drug treatment. It is pretty unfair to summarize decades of neuroscience research as showing that depression is caused by the imbalance of one or another neurotransmitter in the brain. If anything, evolving knowledge of biology shows that depression is an extremely complex behavioral phenotype regulated by a large number of biological pathways, external exposures, and genetic factors, each one contributing a small effect. So drugs that supposedly impact on a single pathway are expected to have a small impact on the overall biology of depression. What new information shows is that there may be some help using SSRIs if there is a severe shortage of serotonin, but the average person's depression cannot simply be related to chemical imbalance. This is that classical broken logic the medical industry uses to brainwash people into taking more medications. If you have low levels of serotonin, for example, you need to be asking, why is it low? How did it get low? It wasn't just by some random fluke. There's always a chain of events that lead up to dysfunctions in the body. It's like if I didn't brush my teeth or get them clean for 10 years, and my mouth started to hurt really bad. So I go to the doctor, and he says, "The reason you're having so much pain is because your natural painkiller levels are too low. So I'm going to prescribe you Oxy." Ridiculous, right? Pain is a natural response physically and psychologically. The only way to truly heal is by determining the root cause and fixing it. The benefit of chemical imbalance theory for insurance companies and the pharmaceutical industry is primarily economic. The medical insurers are primarily concerned with cost, and they want to discourage treatments such as psychotherapy that may involve many appointments and considerable expense. They'd much rather shift treatment towards drugs and away from psychotherapy. The motivation of pharmaceutical companies should be fairly obvious. Anyone familiar with Big Pharma's agenda and tactics need no explanation. All publicly traded for-profit companies are required by law to increase the value of their investors' stock. I think many people are aware that pharmaceutical companies will do just about anything they legally and sometimes illegally can to maximize revenue. Now, I'm sure some of you are thinking these drugs must be somewhat effective if they become this popular and make this much money. This is where things get very murky and deceitful. The industry of randomized trials of antidepressants has generated over the years a long chain of practices and design standards that aims to maximize the chances of showing larger benefits from given drugs. There is also very selective reporting in studies. Here's an example. There was a meta-analysis used data that were submitted to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration for 12 antidepressant drugs that were approved between 1987 and 2004. The meta-analysis found 74 eligible FDA-registered trials with 12,564 patients. The FDA had determined that half of the registered trials had found statistically significant benefits for the antidepressant, or positive trials. All but one of these trials had been published in journals. Conversely, the other half of the trials that were deemed to be negative by the FDA, only 1 in 3 of these were published as negative results. Another 11 trials were published, but the results were presented in such a way to seem as they were positive, and 22 negative trials were silenced and never appeared in the literature at all. In a book called Your Drug May Be Your Problem, Harvard-trained psychiatrist Dr. Peter Breggin showed that antidepressants didn't work better than dummy pills in clinical trials. To his dismay, he also discovered that they can cause the very thing they're trying to cure and push depressed people further over the edge. Big Pharma buried the detrimental findings in an avalanche of false advertising. So let's just run through a few of the great side effects these drugs have. According to the FDA, antidepressants can cause suicidal thoughts and behavior, worsening depression, anxiety, panic attacks, insomnia, irritability, hostility, impulsivity, aggression, psychotic episodes, and violence. Physical side effects occur too, and include abnormal bleeding, birth defects, heart attack, seizures, and sudden death. Over 170 drug regulatory warnings and studies have been issued on antidepressants. If any natural supplement even had like 10% of these, it would be banned immediately. Maybe the most publicized side effect being akathisia, a condition of inner relentlessness or severe agitation. It is the most commonly occurring movement disorder associated with psychoactive drug use. The mainstream seems to twist this condition into a tool to prevent people from getting off their medication. Akathisia has been shown to increase violent behavior and suicide. Antidepressants are known to cause akathisia, so we are literally left with a deadly cycle here. The risk of suicide events for children receiving SSRIs has been 3 times higher than placebo. So to even imagine putting a child on a psychoactive drug is just sickening. And even more research showed that antidepressants can kill neurons and cause structural changes similar to those observed in Parkinson's in rodents. So are there better ways to treat depression? Of course there are. There are natural remedies that have been used for centuries. Quick disclaimer here, many of these natural supplements should not be mixed with prescription drugs, especially the antidepressants. If you're currently on an antidepressant, you should not quit cold turkey. Please get professional help to come off of your medication before trying any of these natural treatments. Lithium orotate. This should be your number one pick for effective results. This targets the glutamate neurotransmitter levels in the brain and brings them into balance. Neurotrophic elements present in lithium also facilitates the growth of brain cells. Individual brain cells known as glial cells get affected tremendously in people suffering from depression. Regular blood tests should be done to monitor your lithium levels. And although lithium use for depression does not cause addiction, overdosing can cause some serious effects. I would recommend consulting with a professional to determine your correct dose. Lithium orotate is a compound, so remember when calculating doses to read the numbers correctly. For example, 125 milligrams of lithium orotate yields 5 milligrams of elemental lithium. If you need to take, say, 250 milligrams of lithium orotate, make sure you don't equate that to 250 milligrams of elemental lithium. 3 other great options to consider are St. John's wort, 5-HTP, and SAM-E. There are also some multivitamin complexes that are formulated for mood and serotonin effect. I'll link those in the description below. Please get this video out to anyone you know that suffers from depression, and honestly, just get it out there to everybody. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and subscribe for more. Thank you for watching.